Hi, it's James here from the Sprinkle Donut Forge in Moscow, Texas, and this video is educational in purpose. And the reason for that is I was on Facebook. I'm a member of a lot of blacksmithing groups, and this one in particular was John Switzer from Black Bear Forge has a group. Black Bear Forge Community Forum, and there was a smith talking about getting cold shuts at the end of his tapers, and I read through the comments and I seen where yes, he was drawing out square then round and supposedly doing everything right that he had heard thus far. We're going to use this old formerly galvanized steel bolt. It's now rusted to the point to where the galvanization is not going to cause metal fume fever. I still recommend always forging with adequate ventilation, but what we're going to do is I'm going to use the round portion. I'm going to use round stock, and this is about 1/2 inch round. I'm going to cut the head off on the hot cut, and I'm going to blunt it on the 1x30 sander. And I'm going to do the wrong thing and show you what the wrong thing looks like when you're trying to draw this into a small taper, like a little point, like a rapier sword or something. You're just trying to get a little point so you can curl it over and do some decorative work with it. For whatever reason you're trying to do this, I'm going to attempt to do it the wrong way. Even though it goes way against my grain, you have to see the mistake, and then you have to see how you get around making that mistake in the first place. So what I'm going to do is get this hot. We're going to cut off the head here at the hot cut and blunt it, and we'll go from there. See you in a minute. Alright, I've got my bolt jaw tongs at the ready to hold the round stock. I've got my hot cut in place, and my advice to you is don't have this thing in place unless you're using it, because knuckle punching the hot cut is not going to feel good, but you can just surmise how that would feel. Anyway, I'm going to be using this hammer for the first time. Now this hammer is very special. It was given to me today. I opened it. I actually received it in the mail yesterday. Today's my birthday. This is a Vaughan 40-ounce ball peen hammer. What I have done to prepare this hammer for forging is I have sanded off the varnish, the finish that's on the handle, because you don't want that. It'll cause blisters. And I have dressed the head. I've taken some of the sharp corners down. It wasn't bad. I mean, I've dressed some fresh store-bought hammers before, but it really wasn't bad. You probably could have used it like it was, but a nice smooth surface will deliver nice smooth marks to your work, and this hammer is prepared for forging. Formerly, if any of you have been following my videos, you've seen me use this hammer a lot. This is a ball peen hammer. It's a 2-pound. It's an old Stanley, and I've had this hammer since I started back seriously with forging a couple years or so ago, and it has not needed dressed but twice. Only twice since I have owned this hammer. It's very, very hard. Very, very good steel. It has a nice index, a nice balance, and as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I like the smaller surface area because you're delivering your force quickly and in a smaller package, and you can move that piece of steel you're aiming at. You take a big wide hammer, you're delivering all that same force and that weight, but you're distributing it over a larger area, and you may not be able to move that steel the same way. Now, the larger hammers have their purpose in the shop, but this is 2 pounds, 32 ounces, I'm sorry. And it's just a little bit light for what I've been doing. And I was having a conversation with Rob from Granddad's Forge the other day about what would be the ideal weight for a hammer, or because he was talking about ball peens, and I said about a 2.5 pound would be perfect. It's got the weight and Of course, it indexes like a good old-fashioned ball peen hammer. And this is a 40 ounce. So I am just tickled to use this on steel for the first time, and I'm going to use this in this video to do this educational piece. So the steel's hot. Let's try to cut it off. Got the heat all at the end here. When using a hot cut, rotate your piece. Just about to break off instead of letting it go willy-nilly wherever it will. Get it real close to being broke off and go ahead and grab the piece. And into the old slack tub it goes. Now, straighten the equation. And you see that little ice cream top? We're going to whip that off on the grinder. I'll do that and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, there's the end. It's been blunted to where it's just basically a piece of 1/2 inch round stock. Now you want to make this thing taper to a small point because you might want to scroll it around or do something with it or make an ice pick out of it, whatever your purpose is for wanting this to come to a small point. I'm going to show you the wrong way first, and I'm going to have to cut it off and blunt it again, but I'm going to show you the wrong way to do this so you'll see. So let's heat it up and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, let's assume you don't know you're supposed to draw out square and then round. Excuse me. And you don't know you're supposed to come from back here to move your stock forward. You're going to try to work on your point, just instinctive. And you see a lot of facets happening, so you're going to want to try to round that. Okay, I've managed to achieve what I'm trying to talk about. I'll probably have to cool it so you can see it well. Do you see the center indented? Yeah. See how it's sinking in? Well, when you try to go for the tip to get it smaller, that's the part that's going to close into a cold shut. Just to illustrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead, even though I know it's wrong at this point, I'm going to go ahead and heat it up, and we'll go for that little tip, and we'll see what happens with that cold shut. Cold shut is when metal that comes together as separate pieces, such as the edges of this, come together and do not properly weld, and they'll split and cause all kind of havoc. So let's cause that havoc and we'll see, and I'll show you. So see you in a minute. Okay, so this is actually at a pretty good forging heat. I'm gonna let it sit a second just to illustrate. When you dilly-dally around and you let your heat get too low, Okay. You can't see anything. Okay. You don't know you're supposed to draw out square, then knock the corners down, then go round. Square, octagonal, round. That's a recipe. So we're gonna smash it. And we're just gonna rotate the tongs like you would if you didn't know. Well, it's not at our needle point yet. And you're really not going to succeed in getting it that way with this method. Let me show you. You see that little tunnel has grown. And look at it starting to twist itself. That's not good. So, in order to illustrate the right way to do this, I'm going to have to cut this off. And we're going to have to start from the start. See you in a minute. Oh yeah, look. See, that's the problem. That's the problem that was presented. Why am I getting cold shuts? Yeah. Let's do it the right way. See you in a minute. There we are, blunted. Once again, piece cut off, ground flat, just like a regular piece of round stock you will be using. Let's get it hot. We'll show you the right way. See you in a minute. Alright, time does not permit for me to explain this to you when the steel comes out. So I'm going to tell you this now. Get up to a good yellow. Beyond the cherry red, beyond the bright red, into the yellow. And but don't let it get to sparklers, because your steel will start burning whatever carbon it has out of it. And it'll start carburizing and be nasty, and you want to work with your steel cleanly. And if you have scale forming that doesn't just pop off with the hammer, use a wire brush and knock that off just before you start forging. Anyway, you're going to pull from the thick part of the stock a little ways up where your taper needs to begin and start pushing towards the end. And you're going to do that and then flip it all the way over 180 degrees and do that again. And then flip it halfway around and square it off. You're going to try to draw a square taper. And you get your square taper kind of halfway close from flat to flat, and then you knock the corners down, but make sure you maintain a heat of a good forging heat, and try to work squarely, because if you work a little bit off square, you're going to end up with a trapezoid, and that's real hard to correct. So here it comes. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing and it'll make sense to you. A lot of scale on there. Brush that off. All the way over to this side, but don't go to the tip. Judge your heat. Straighten everything up. Mildly knock the corners down. Okay, it's not glowing here to me. I know the camera picks up more glow than I can see. So, back in. The end is not dimpling in. You see that? See you in a minute. Okay, for this next phase of operation, we're going to do a 90-degree back and forth turn. One facet, next facet, like this. The piece is going to curve. Don't worry about that. You can always just flip it over and straighten that out. That's no problem. You don't have to go all four edges with this. You go one, then the other, but try to keep yourself squarely opposed to each one. If you go squarely and then partly squarely, you're going to end up with a diamond shape, elongated diamond shape, and that's really hard to correct, especially if your end result is going to be a square taper. So what we're going to do is pretend just like you're making a nail. It follows suit. You do one facet, turn it one facet over, hit, back and forth, and you work from the big part of the stock down towards the end. You don't work on the end and work towards your hand. That will not deliver the results that you're trying to get. So hopefully you can follow along with what I'm doing. I've got a close-up on the anvil where you can see everything. The hammer's performing nicely, by the way. So out it comes. This happens quick. Put your square up. Now straighten. I was getting a little bit of that trapezoid I'm talking about. I lean the high edge up. So far, we have no caving. Don't get greedy with your heat. When it's not glowing good, go ahead and straighten things up. Planish it a little bit. Planishing is smoothing out the bumps. Pick up your hammer speed a little bit. And then knock a little bit of your corners down. Not too much. Okay, the tip is still not caving in. It's actually bulging out just a little bit. That's good. So we'll get it back in the fire, and we'll try to get this down to a smaller taper. Notice I have been working from the thicker part of the stock towards the end evenly, and I've been maintaining a forging heat. Less than a good glowing cherry red is not forging heat, that's planishing heat. And planishing is the smoothing out like I talked about. So you have to keep it hot. And it goes back to the old blacksmith's adage, strike while the iron's hot. I'm sure that most of you have heard that, strike while the iron is hot. This is steel, but iron, that really speaks volumes for iron, because iron has to be very, very hot, almost to the point to where it's sparkling and welding heat in order to move it properly, because it has a grain structure that's far different than refined steel. So back in, and we're going to work on this taper some more, and we'll see you in a minute. Oh, footnote. This will happen a lot faster if I wasn't showing how to do it. I am trying to go at a snail's pace, that way you can gather what I'm doing here. So back in, see you in a minute. Alright, here we are. I'll brush the crap off. Same thing, one facet return. Knock corners down. The end still has not sunk in, and we're getting a taper. Back in. Like I may have mentioned, this taper would have been over in 10 minutes, but I want you to see what goes into it, and we're going slow. So, if you got a half hour of your life, you want to learn this, here we go. Do the turn thing. Keep straightening it. Now we're going to planish. Knock the corners down. Be gentle. Watch the metal move. The end is still not sinking in. We don't have any cold shuts going to happen. So this next heat, I'm going to go round. Because I went square. I went octagonal. Next heat, I'm going to do the rotation. But I'm not going to do the rotation in a single direction. I'm going to do it back and forth. That way I don't get a twist happening from the hammering. I kind of halfway twist it, halfway untwist it, and get this thing moving like we want to. So back in, we'll see you in a minute. Oh, and remember, the smaller the metal starts to get, the smaller parts will heat up quicker than the bigger parts, and you can actually burn steel. Steel will burn. So you want to watch your heat, work your hot spots. If you need to dive a little tip over the hot spot into a cooler area and heat another portion, do so. Just try to keep the heat consistent. Even if you have to run the piece in and out, just make sure you keep your heat consistent. I need to get a gas forge going here, that way I can learn the ins and outs of it and help a lot of you guys and gals that are into gas forging. But I have a coal forge, so that's what I'm using. You have to work your hot spots. Almost there. Let me give it a crank. here we go. Start by knocking your corners down. Then start your twisting halfway around. I'd say go 2/3 and then return. Planish everything up from this point. Aim for the creases. Still not sinking in. So, and look, we've managed to draw this piece out by working from here out. One more heat, and then we'll work on scrolling this. Let's say you're going to scroll this. Let's give it another heat and get it to a nice point, and I'll show you how to use the corner of your anvil to start your scroll. You don't need a scroll starter or a jig or anything like that, but it helps in mass production. If you're going to make a lot of things that need to look the same, a jig is very, very helpful. But I don't have any welding equipment, although I could make a jig. I don't have any need for one, so we're just going to go with a freehand scroll. We'll get this hot, get it a little bit more tapered down, and if you're getting close to the end and you start to see a part rising up on it that needs to be taken down, go ahead and rasp that or file that off. That way you can keep any rag from creating cold shuts. See you in a minute. Alright, out you come. Do the round. Remember, that little piece is not going to retain the heat like this bigger piece is. So even though you got forging heat here, just use that while you got it. But if the tip's getting blacker, you need to reheat that. So turn your attention from the piece that's not at forging heat to the part that's right to work on. And knock the corners down, get it nice and round. Go gentler when planishing smaller pieces. You can actually get it pretty symmetrical. Now look at that. We went from a big old 1/2-inch bolt all the way down to a very, very small taper with probably about a 1/8 of an inch end. Actually, that's less than 1/8. At this point, the dimple is negligible, so we're going to go just a little bit more. I'm just going to heat the tip. Well, I'm going to do that real quick because that's not going to take long. Place it in there, hold it with the tongs, and apply some air. See how quick that heated up. Go around. Not right at the tip. You're working everything steadily towards the tip. That's probably about as small as you're going to want to get one, unless you're going to a needle point. Let me get my Champ Iron Works ruler, and we'll see. We'll see how small that tip really is. Let's go on the inch system, the SAE. That's about 1/16 of an inch. A little bit bigger, probably 3/32. That's small enough, and there's no dimpling. There's no cold shut going to happen. So we'll warm it up, we'll scroll it around. So see you in a minute. Alright, to create a scroll, you're going to dip just a little tiny bit over the edge of the anvil, and you're going to tap it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Turn that back towards yourself, then tap it down. You can tighten your scroll however you see fit. There you go. No cold shuts. That's how it's done the right way. And you can keep scrolling that until it winds up into a ball. It doesn't matter. Just whatever degree of scroll you want, you can get it. There's no splits in the end of that. It's all nice and solid. Let me take these glasses off. Hold on. Well, that's all I got for this evening. Until next time, bye.